Good morning, third graders from Rio Grande Elementary. It's good to see you checking your DMA for today. Keep it up. Remember, these are going to help you later in remembering to keep those skills up as we go along. So let's take a look at our first problem this morning. It's a word problem, or we could call it also a story problem. And we're going to read the information and then we're going to read the question. So it says, Hugo lifted a total of 72 pounds in 9 attempts. An attempt is a try, just in case if you didn't know what an attempt was. So Hugo lifted the same number of pounds in each attempt or try. How many pounds did he lift in each attempt? So let's take a look at our information in our story problem. It tells us that we have a total, or he lifted a total of 72 pounds. So we know that that's all of the weight, or all of the pounds that were lifted in 9 attempts or 9 tries. So Hugo lifted the same amount or the equal amount of pounds in each attempt. Each attempt is a very important word. Now it says, how many pounds did he lift in each attempt? So what they're wanting you to do is they want you to take this total amount, divide it equally between the tries, which would be your groups, and they want to know how many pounds did he lift for each attempt. Now this is kind of hard to visualize. So we know that this is going to be a division problem, and we know because it's talking about the total pounds, we're breaking it up into groups, which are your attempts or your tries, to find out how many is going to be in each try, or how many pounds are going to be for each attempt. So our question is asking us to find how many pounds did he lift in each attempt. Each attempt. We're not looking for a total, and the reason we're not looking for a total is because we're not putting the pounds together to find a total. We already know the total pounds here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to the back of my paper here. And this is day 4. So we know that Hugo has lifted 72 pounds total. And the attempts or the tries are how many times he's lifting the same amount of weight. So these are the tries or the attempts. And they want to know how many pounds he lifted each time he picked up this weight. Okay, pounds, number of pounds each time, or each try. Okay, so try with a Y, drop the Y, change it to an I, add ES, makes tries. So that may be something that you guys are doing in language arts right now with Miss Badger for ELA, because you guys are working on verbs and try is a verb. So let's take a look at what could we do. So remember, multiplication is the opposite of division. So we know our groups, because those are the tries. We don't know how many pounds he lifted each time, but we do know that each time after he's lifted it, this is how many pounds he lifted afterwards. So we want to know how many pounds he lifted each time to get to those 72 pounds that were added together. So 9 times blank, which would be your pounds or your quotient here, this is your missing factor. So remember, your quotient is one of these missing factors. Now in this case, it's our number in each group, which is this part of my division equation. Now what I could do is I could take my 9 groups if I didn't know my multiplication facts fluently, and this is why we need to continue to practice, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So there's our 9 groups, and every time he lifts, that's going to be a try that he has. And we know that he has lifted 72 pounds total. So we're going to take this 72 pounds and divide it equally into these tries or these groups. So those are the 9 groups or the 9 tries that he's attempting. So we could go by 2s, or I could think of something that I could multiply times 9 that's going to give me, well, what about 5? 5 seems like we know what 5 would be. That would be, right, 45. So let's go ahead and just put a 5 in here instead of having to do 1 or 2 at a time. When we to count up to 72. So now we've just eliminated up to 45. Now we could go from 45 and start adding in the rest to get to 72. So we're at 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. So far we're at 63 because we were at 45. So 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. Now, since this is an even number, why don't we try going at 2? Well, no, let's go ahead and try 1. So 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, and 72. 72. So again, we can see that in each of these groups, he lifted 8 pounds each time. So when he lifted this 8 pounds, they added it. He lifted this 8 pounds, they added it. He lifted this 8 pounds, he added it. And as he continued to lift this 8 pounds, you are adding or repeatedly adding up to 72. Or you could use repeated subtraction also. You could start at 72 and take away groups of 9 because that's the number that you know. And if you subtract groups of 9 and you know counting backwards, that would be 63 because it's 10 minus 1. 10 minus 1 from there, so 63. 10 minus 1 would be 54. 54 minus 9 would be 10 minus 1, which is 45. You can see that pattern of 9s going backwards, the multiples of 9 going backwards. 45 minus 9 would be 36. Notice how these are starting to switch places in the 1s and 10s. 36 minus 9, 27. 27 minus 9 is going to be, you guessed it, 18. 18 minus 9, we're at 9. And finally, 9 minus 9 is 0. So, remember, multiplication is repeated addition, but division is repeated subtraction. So since I know one of my factors, I can just take that factor and continue to subtract it from my total until I find out how many times did I subtract 9. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I subtracted 9 8 times. So again, if I add it all back up, then that would make 72. So there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And finally, one more would make 9. And I do know that that's going to be 72 because I know my multiplication facts fluently. So let's take a look at number 2. Oops, excuse me. So number 2, I have 849. That's my total. I'm going to subtract from that 399, and I'm going to look for my difference. Remember, the answer to a subtraction number sentence is called your difference, with a CE at the end, because the C and the E makes the S sound, okay? So difference is our answer to a subtraction problem. Now, again, remember, opposite of subtraction is addition. So what does that tell us? That I'm missing one of the amounts that when I add it to 399, I'm going to get 848. So really and truly, I could think about, okay, what could I add to 399 to get me close to 849? We could think about it that way also. So let's take a look at 848 minus 399. Now, 399 is very close to 400, and that would make it so much easier for us to just subtract 400. So we would over subtract and then add one back in from that. So if I did that, if I subtracted 400 and I over subtract 400, that would leave me with 448. 448. And then I add one back in would make it 449 because I over subtracted. So since I over subtracted, I need to add one back in. Now, to check this idea out, I would take this 449, add it back with 399, and check and see if it comes out to 848. Well, 9 plus 9 is 18. Carry the 10. Notice how I said not the 1, I said 10. 9 and one more, 90 and one more 10 is 100. So that 100 gets regrouped here. And there's a 40 left here. So we leave it in the tens place. We have 100 and 400 is 500. And 3 more hundreds is 800. So we must have done our subtraction correctly. And because we got 848 when we took our part and the missing part and added it back together. We checked our subtraction by using addition. So our missing part here is 449, and we know that the difference here is 449. Now, another way we could take a look at this is by go ahead and subtracting based on place value. So if I take this 800 and I subtract 300, I would get 500, correct? Because 500 plus 300 is 800. So you can still check your subtraction by using addition going backwards this way. So 500 plus 300 is 800. Now I'm going to take the 40 and subtract 90. Now, this is less than 40, which means I cannot subtract 90 from this 40. This has to be greater. So in order for me to do this, I need to borrow 100 from this 400 or 500, and now there's 400 left. I'm going to take that 100 and add it here to the 40. Now I can go ahead and subtract. Now let's count up from 90 up to 140. So from 90, one more 10 would be 100. So that's 110. Another 10 would be 110. That would be 2 tens, which is 20. Another 10 would be 120. That's 3 tens. 1, 2, 3. Another 10 would be 130. That's 4 tens. And finally, if you're thinking about this pattern, 140 is 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally 5. So 50 and 90 is going to make 140. Well, let's check. 90, 100, 110, 120, 140, and finally 150. So I counted up from 90 to 140, and I got 5 tens to make 150. So again, checking your subtraction by using addition. And now I know my ones place is 8, and my ones place here is 9, so I subtract 8 minus 9. And what do you notice? Right, you cannot subtract 9 from only 8. So I'm going to take and borrow a 10, leaving me with 40, and I'm going to take that 10 and I'm going to add it here to the 18. Now I can go ahead and subtract these 9 from these 18. And if we know our addition facts, 9 plus 9, 9 plus 9 is 18, and 18 minus 9 is 9. So when I put my hundreds place and my tens place and my ones place back together again, I have 449, which is what we have here in our difference. 449. Now, again, we can also use our algorithm and subtract. And again, we still have the same understanding that we cannot subtract 9 from 8, and that's why we had to borrow this 10. So we're going to do that from here, which is the 40, and that's going to regroup as 18, and that leaves me with 30. And 9 plus 9 is 18, so I have a difference of 9. 30, can't subtract 9 from 30, so again, we know we're going to have to borrow 100, leaving us with 7. And these are, instead of 3 tens, now I have 13 tens, because this 100 is 10 tens. So I take those 10 tens and add it to the 3 tens, and now I have 13 tens. So 13 minus 9 is going to give me a difference of 40, and 700 minus 300 is going to be 400s. So again, regrouping is important to understand when you don't have enough to subtract. Okay? So now let's take a look at our division problems. We have our dividend, which is our total. We have our groups, or the number in each group, depends on how you want to look at it. And we want the either, whatever the opposite of this is, the groups or the number in each group. So again, lots of different ways to figure out what our missing quotient is. We could use repeated subtraction. We could take and put groups of 6 together and add up. We could count by 6s going up to 54. Those are all possible ways to do this. So if I take 6 groups, and again, this is just one way that I can do this. Oh, I've only got enough room for 5. Let's put another one here, 6. And I know that this is even, so that means I can start off with 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I could probably do another 2 because we're not even close to 54 yet, right? 12. So 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. 24 is still a ways away. 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36. Now that I'm thinking about it, what could I have used times 6 to give me something that's closer to 54? Well, I could have used 5, right? But we could use that next time, okay? So we were at 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. Now we're getting pretty close to 54, so let's just go one at a time now from here. So 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54. So we have taken all 54 of these objects, put them into 6 equal groups, and how many do we have in each group? Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we can see that we put 9 in each group. So now let's take what we know about 45 divided by 5. Well, come on guys, we know what we can multiply times 9 or 5 to get 45, right? Right. 9, right? So our quotient is going to be 9. Or we could count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and finally 45. Well, how many times did I count up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Lots of different ways to look at it, guys. We could also use counting backwards by 5s. It's not as easy, but again, we could do it. So let's do that with this particular problem. 24 divided by 4. So let's count back from 24. Let's start with 24 and count back 4. So take away 4, that would be 20. Take away 4, that would be 16. Take away 4, that would be 12. Take away another 4, that would be 8. Take away 4, now I'm at 4. And take away another 4, now I'm at 0. So to get to 0, I had to subtract 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So finally, we don't need that 0 there, but to get to 4, we had 6 times. Or again, we could do counting up 4. We started with 4. Notice that this is going to look like the pattern going backwards. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and 24. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So either way you look at it, it's all okay. All right, our next pattern is the rule. Remember, the rule is what's the pattern? The rule is the pattern. So pattern. What's happening each time in this pattern? We call that the rule. So today, that is going to be our discussion word for the discussion in your Schoology folder today. So remember, the clue word today is pattern, and next to that, you're going to write rule. So actually, we have 2 words in our discussion today. So it says to multiply by 7. So let's say, for example, we have a team and each team has 7 players. Let's just say teams and players. So for every team, there's going to be another 7 players, and it tells us that the rule is to multiply by 7. So if we had 2 teams, now how many players would there be? Well, there would be a total of 14 players now. If we had 3 teams and there were 7 players on each team, then now there would be 21 players. And again, every time you multiply by 7, because it's telling you what's happening from the input to the output. So 4 teams, 7 players on each team. Now you should be at 28 because we're adding another group of 7 to this 21. And now finally we have 5 groups of 5 teams with 7 on each team, and we're going to have 35 team members. Now, what if I just decided here to put 10 teams? Well, if I did 10 teams, it would still be the same pattern. There would be 7 players on each team, and so my input to my output would be you multiply by 7, and that would give you 70 players total. This is your product. This is your factor. The rule is your other factor. So remember those 2 words that I asked you to put in your discussion for today? And that's 70. We will see you later on today during our meeting. Have a great morning, guys.